You've had this feeling before, a quiet, almost unsettling thought that slips in when everything else goes silent, that maybe the universe isn't as endless as you've been told, that maybe infinity isn't real in the way you imagine it, and you push it away, because the idea that something as vast as existence could have limits feels strangely uncomfortable, almost claustrophobic. But what if the discomfort isn't coming from the truth? What if it's coming from the illusion you've been holding on to? And what if, without realizing it, that illusion is shaping the way you see yourself, your life, and your place in everything? Because the moment you begin to question whether the universe is truly infinite, you're not just questioning space. You're questioning the way your mind has been trained to cope with the unknown. And that's where things start to get interesting. Because you were never really taught to understand the universe. You were taught to feel safe inside it. The idea of an infinite universe is comforting in a very specific way. It gives you room, endless room, no edges, no boundaries, no final answers. It means there's always more space, more time, more chances, more meaning waiting somewhere out there. Infinity feels like freedom, but if you sit with it long enough, really sit with it, it also feels like something else. It feels like escape. Because if everything is infinite, then nothing is urgent, nothing is final, nothing is fully real. And deep down, a part of you knows that doesn't quite match your experience of life. Your time doesn't feel infinite. Your energy doesn't feel infinite. Your opportunities don't feel infinite. There are limits everywhere you look, except in the one place you've been told matters most, the universe itself. This is where Richard Feynman approached things differently. He wasn't interested in comforting ideas. He was interested in what could actually be known, tested, understood. And one of the most subtle but powerful shifts he encouraged was this: don't confuse what feels intuitive with what is true, because your mind is built to simplify reality, not to reveal it. You imagine infinity as this endless stretch, like a line that just keeps going forever. But that image is a psychological construction. It's not evidence. It's not proof. It's just the best your brain can do when it tries to grasp something beyond its limits. And this is where the illusion begins. Because when you think of the universe as infinite, you're not actually perceiving infinity. You're imagining it. And there's a difference. A quiet but important difference. Your brain fills in the gaps with something familiar, something smooth, something continuous. But reality doesn't owe you that comfort. In fact, modern physics has been slowly dismantling this idea. Not aggressively, not dramatically, but quietly, carefully, almost like it knows how deeply attached you are to the belief. When scientists observe the universe, they don't see something that clearly extends infinitely. What they see is a limit to what can be observed, a horizon, a boundary of information, not because the universe necessarily ends there, but because beyond that point, light hasn't had time to reach you. You are always looking at a finite slice of reality, no matter how powerful your tools become. And this does something subtle to your perception, because it means that, for you, the universe is always finite, always contained within what can be known, and that realization starts to echo inward, because it's not just about space anymore. It's about how you relate to uncertainty. You've been conditioned to believe that not knowing something means it goes on forever. But that's not necessarily true. Sometimes, not knowing just means you've reached a boundary, and your mind doesn't like boundaries. It resists them. It tries to stretch them, rename them, turn them into something softer, like infinity, because infinity removes pressure. If the universe has no edge, then you never have to confront one. Not out there, not in here, but what if it does? Not in the simple sense of a wall or a border, but in a deeper, more structural way. Physics suggests that space itself might be finite but unbounded, a concept that feels almost contradictory at first, finite but without an edge, like the surface of a sphere. If you keep moving in one direction, you don't fall off. You just come back around, no boundary, but still limited. And this is where your intuition starts to break down, because your brain isn't built to naturally understand this. It wants straight lines, clear endings, or endless continuations. but not something in between. And yet, that in between might be closer to reality than either extreme. Now pause for a moment, because this isn't just about cosmology. This is about you. You often think of your life in extremes too. Either you have endless time, or you've run out of it. Either something will always be there, or it will completely disappear. But what if your life, like the universe, is something more nuanced, finite, but open, limited, but not trapped? That changes how you feel, doesn't it? Because suddenly, your time matters, but it doesn't suffocate you. Your choices matter, but they don't define everything. There's structure, but also movement. And that balance is something your mind rarely allows itself to sit in. It prefers the safety of absolutes. Infinity is one of those absolutes. It's a psychological escape route disguised as a scientific idea, and the more you rely on it, the more you distance yourself from something real, something present, something finite. Because finiteness creates meaning. If something goes on forever, it loses weight, it loses urgency, it becomes background noise. But when something is limited, it becomes valuable, precious, alive. This is why the idea that the universe might not be infinite is so unsettling. It forces you to confront limitation on the largest possible scale. And that mirrors something deeper inside you. Your fear of limits, your resistance to endings, your discomfort with not having more time later. But there's also something quietly empowering in this. Because when you stop assuming there's always more, you start paying attention to what is. You stop drifting. You start choosing. And this is where Feynman's perspective becomes almost therapeutic. He didn't pretend to have final answers. He was comfortable with uncertainty, but not the kind of uncertainty that hides behind infinity. The kind that acknowledges limits and explores within them. There's honesty in that, a kind of intellectual humility, and maybe that's what's missing in the way you've been thinking. Not more answers, but a better relationship with not knowing. Because when you say the universe is infinite, you're not actually solving anything. You're just postponing the question, pushing it further away, making it unreachable. But when you allow for the possibility that it's not infinite, you bring the question closer. You make it something you can engage with, something you can feel, and yes, something that can unsettle you, but also something that can ground you. Because suddenly, existence isn't this abstract, endless void. It's something structured, something shaped, something that exists in a way that you can, at least partially, understand. And that changes how you see yourself. You're not lost in an infinite expanse. You're part of a finite system, a real one, a knowable one, even if only in pieces. And that makes your presence here more significant, not less. Because you're not just one point in an endless void. You're part of a defined reality. A reality with constraints, with rules, with meaning that emerges from those limits. This is the part most people miss. They think infinity makes things bigger, more important. But often, it does the opposite. It dilutes. It spreads everything so thin that nothing feels solid anymore. Finiteness, on the other hand, concentrates meaning. It gives weight to existence. And maybe that's what you've been avoiding. Not the idea that the universe might not be infinite, but what that implies about your own life, that your time is real, that your moments matter, that this, right now, isn't just a temporary stop in an endless journey. It's part of something defined, something that won't repeat infinitely. And that realization can feel heavy, but it can also feel clarifying, because it strips away the illusion of later. It brings you back to now, to what you can actually touch, feel, experience. And maybe that's the real shift here. Not proving whether the universe is infinite or not, but noticing what the belief does to you. Does it make you more present or more detached? Does it deepen your sense of meaning or quietly dissolve it? Because the truth is, you don't need the universe to be infinite to feel wonder. In fact, wonder often comes from limits, from edges, from the places where understanding starts to fade. That's where curiosity lives. That's where exploration begins. And that's where you are right now. At the edge of an idea you've taken for granted. Seeing it a little more clearly. a little more honestly, and maybe feeling something shift inside you. Not a dramatic change, just a subtle realignment, where you stop relying on infinity as a comfort and start engaging with reality as it is. Complex, uncertain, possibly finite, but still deeply meaningful. Because in the end, it's not about whether the universe goes on forever. It's about how you choose to exist within it. And maybe for the first time, you're starting to see that more clearly. Not as something distant and abstract, but as something that quietly shapes every thought, every choice, every moment of your life. And that awareness, that quiet, grounded awareness, that's where real understanding begins.